Excellent. Good morning and welcome. My name is Haley. I am from Learn Fort Langley, and we are here today with the HR MacMillan Space Centre. So I'm going to pass it over to Rachel, and she's going to get started.
Hello, everyone. Hi. My name is Rachel, and I'm the astronomer at the HR MacMillan Space Center. And today we have a really cool topic for you guys. It's about living in space. So very different than living on Earth, but in some ways, it's also pretty similar. In just a few moments, you should be able to see an Earth pop up on your screen. Now, I want you to imagine what it would be like if you were stuck in a 6-bedroom house with 6 of your classmates in orbit around Earth for months at a time. You'd get to float because of the zero gravity conditions, and you could also see Earth from space. Now, if that sounds good to you, I want you to put your hands on your head like a moose. If that sounds really fun, that you'd like to be in orbit in space with 6 of your closest friends. Lots of moose ears. Me too. I feel like that would be really, really fun. Then if you said yes, if you had your hands on your head like a moose, then you would probably make a really good astronaut, because that's what they do when they live on the International Space Station, or the ISS, as they're doing right now, as they're orbiting up in space around us, around Earth. And if you were to go to space, you would probably see something like this through your window, which I think is pretty cool to have that kind of view outside your bedroom. Now, NASA has had almost 20 years of successful living on the ISS, and that's because they asked researchers and psychologists to study what kind of human behaviors are best for living and working in small groups. And I'll share with you some 5 good human skills that NASA astronauts follow while living in space. Now, the first one is really good communication, which means that you talk so you're clearly understood, and make sure that you're listening and ask questions when you don't understand something. The second one is leadership and being led. And that means being able to adapt to situations and being a positive influence on your team. The third one is a really important one. It's called self-care. And that means keeping track of how healthy you are, both mentally and also physically. The fourth one is team care. So taking care of your team by showing patience, respect, and also encouraging others. And the last one is group living. And that means to cooperate or work together rather than competing with your peers. So these are all really good rules for NASA astronauts to follow while living in space, but they're also good rules for living on Earth too. And in addition to having good human skills, NASA also does something called analog missions, and these are Earth-based missions. Now, these analog missions are really just test runs that scientists run before doing their actual mission. And that's because practice makes perfect. So they run these tests in places here on Earth that are similar to the extreme and harsh space environments that astronauts and robots will encounter on their mission. Places like the desert, like where these radio telescopes are. For example, hot and dry places like the Atacama Desert, like I just showed you, are great places to run these analog or test missions for going to places like the moon or to Mars. Now, these missions are really important for space agencies like NASA and the Canadian Space Agency, because space missions are really, really expensive. And not only that, if we're sending a rover or a human on a mission to outer space, we want to be 100% sure that they are safe. So right now I'm showing you my favorite rover of all time. It's on Mars, and it's named Curiosity. So it landed 8 years ago in 2012. So if you've heard about the rover Curiosity, I want you to make a heart with your hands. And if you haven't heard about Curiosity, I want you to touch your nose. So I have to admit that I did include Curiosity because it is my favorite. It landed on Mars on my birthday. And I love that Curiosity sings happy birthday to itself every year on Mars. So while doing these test missions, astronauts and researchers practice what it's like to live and work off of Earth. Things like talking over long distances, not being able to use any of the resources that we would have on Earth, and only using what they brought with them. And also living for a long period of time off of our planet Earth. Now imagine going camping for a week with some of your closest friends. You would probably make sure that you had plenty of food and stuff to cook that food with. The food should be stored properly so it doesn't spoil. And after finishing your meal, you would pack all of your gear, dispose your trash, and drive back home. So, what's it like to eat in space? Now, I do have a video to share with you. It's from Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield, who made this video on the ISS in what's called Chris's Kitchen.
Let's talk about space food. In the early days of space exploration, food was mostly squeezed out of tubes and brought up in dehydrated packets. But today, we can have quite a variety of food. There's all sorts of things that we normally consume on Earth that we have here in space. We just need some minor adaptations. In the case of sandwiches, we had to substitute for bread. So we decided to use tortillas. But why? Mostly it's because bread, of course, makes crumbs. When you eat them on Earth, the crumbs fall down to the ground. But here, crumbs are just going to float away. On the other hand, the tortillas that we use are heat treated and specially packaged in an oxygen-free environment to prevent mold from growing. They're packed in packages like this. And thanks to that process, a tortilla like this can be good for 18 months. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up our tortilla. We're going to get our peanut butter, squirt it onto the tortilla, get our honey, squirt that on there, and we will have a peanut butter honey sandwich in space. Open up the tortilla, and voila, a weightless tortilla. Okay, we got one tortilla. Whoa, got away. Take my peanut butter, open it up. Can't rip it. Fortunately, we have space scissors. They're attached via a tether so they don't go floating off. Take the scissors, cut open the peanut butter pouch. Peanut butter's open, squeeze it onto the tortilla, carefully. And now a little honey. Hey, I noticed something cool about the honey. Instead of the bubble sitting up at the top, because there's no gravity to make it float up, the bubble is floating in the middle. Okay, all closed up, and the envelope of peanut butter and honey is ready to eat. Not too bad. Last piece of my sandwich. It's been pretty delicious, but my hands are all sticky. Gotta clean up. We don't have a sink. We don't have running water. Gotta wash yourself up some other way. Disinfectant wipes. All cleaned up. Nice and hygienic on the space station. This goes in the trash. Lunch is over. Delicious.
Alrighty, and thank you to Chris Hadfield for that wonderful how to make a DIY peanut butter sandwich in space. Now, some foods like that one that he just made, and things like brownies and fruit, they can just eat and they don't have to prepare. But some other foods have to or require water to be added. Things like mac and cheese or spaghetti will come in this dried or dehydrated form, and you have to add water to them. And astronauts can also heat their foods in space. They do have an oven, but they actually don't have a refrigerator. So they need to make sure that the food is stored properly, like in those packages that you saw that Chris Hadfield had. And they also have salt and pepper for seasoning, but they have to be really careful because it doesn't come in that solid form, like the salt and pepper shakers that you would have on your tabletop. They actually come in liquid forms, because if they came in those kinds of grains that they come in at home, they might float away and actually clog air vents on the ISS. Now, I'm going to pass it off to my colleague Trish, who actually has space food with her. So Trish, do you want to show off some of the space food that you have?
So hi, my name is Trish and I work at the Space Center with Rachel. And what's really cool about my job is when I go to work, I get to share stuff that I know, but more importantly, all of the wonders that I have. And I have lots of wonders about space. And I think some of the cool stuff I want to show you today might answer some of your wonders too. So the question Rachel asked me was, what about space food? Sasha, I see your hand is up. I think you might have a wonder. We're going to answer some questions later. So one of the questions we have is, what do astronauts eat when they go to space? So Rachel talked about something that was really important, is that everything floats in space. It's called microgravity. So if you were to get up this morning, Craig family, and you whip back the covers and you put your feet on the floor, oh, wait a minute. If you're in space, your feet can't go on the floor. You would float out of your bed, float down the hall like this, and you'd float right into the kitchen for breakfast. Now, can everybody put their finger on their nose if they had cereal this morning? Anyone have cereal? Grayson or Cole, did you have cereal this morning? Anyone have Cheerios in their life? Lincoln, have you ever had Cheerios? Finger on your nose. Thanks, everyone. Oh, I see lots of Cheerios. Okay, well, astronauts like cereal as well in space, but what do you think the problem would be, Natalia, if you poured a box of Cheerios in your bowl in space? Craig family, do you think that it would go in the bowl? Yeah, I don't think so. You would have a Cheerio floating out here. Next thing you know, you'd get a Cheerio in your eyeball floating around. So astronauts have all of their food in a package like this. I'll see if I can get really close. This is actually Rice Krispies for an astronaut. Can you see that? Yeah, here's the crispy part inside. And you can see it has a little opening just at the end there. Now, what's cool about astronaut food is it has the milk inside and it has the crispy inside, but it has all of the air taken out and all of the water taken out. So it's really light. So it goes in a package like this all the way up to space. Craig family, can you see that nice and close? Yeah? And it also has something here called Velcro. Wonder what that would be for. Think about your wonders. What would the Velcro be for? Why would you have Velcro on your Rice Krispies in the morning? That seems kind of silly. Here's another really cool one I want to show you. Anyone out there had oatmeal before? This is oatmeal for astronauts, and it even has brown sugar. You can see the instructions. Thanks, Henry. I can see I got a thumbs up. So you've had oatmeal before. That's really cool. And it's got brown sugar, and it even has instructions. If I get really close, you might be able to see it. It says 100 milliliters of hot water and wait 2 to 5 minutes. That's how you cook oatmeal in space. You just add hot water to the end of the package, wait for it to heat up the oatmeal, and then you can open up the top and then very carefully go in with a spoon and go. Now you got to be careful because otherwise the oatmeal will float out of the package and start floating around the cabin. And in that video, Chris talked about that. You can't have anything with crumbs in space because you could get crumbs in the eyeball, or you could get crumbs floating around where you're sleeping in your bedroom. So you don't want crumbs. Now I've got I've got a few other cool things to look. Put your hand on your head if you've ever had spaghetti or pasta for dinner or for lunch. Oh, nice. Grayson, are you eating cereal right now? Cole, I can see you. Oh, perfect, I can see you too. So check this out. I'm gonna get really close to my camera. Can you see the spaghetti? There's spaghetti in this package. Ooh. Give me a thumbs up if you want to eat spaghetti like this. Give me a thumbs down if you say no thank you. Lincoln, do you want to eat some spaghetti like this? Oh, perfect. I see lots of thumbs down. Yeah. I don't know about this, but this is an astronaut dinner right here. It doesn't look very big. And you can see that it's really crunchy in its package. It's very hard. Stella, thanks for the thumbs down. Lincoln, thanks for the thumbs down. Perfect. Yeah, so it's had all of the water removed, so it's super light. So an astronaut would just take this spout on the end and they would stick it under this very special tube that comes down right here, and it puts the water in the end, and then the spaghetti would rehydrate, so it would puff up, and they would add hot water. So if I turn this around here and I hold it nice and close, you can see it says spaghetti with meat sauce, add 100 milliliters of hot water and wait 10 minutes. Now, if I point way down here to the bottom, it's really cool. There's instructions in a different language. In fact, The astronauts on the International Space Station also speak Russian. So the food has to have instructions from English, and it also has to have instructions in Russian. How cool is that? So that's some astronaut spaghetti. So now that you know about it, does anybody want to have spaghetti for breakfast? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Oh, I still see some thumbs down. Down from Henry. Thank you, Henry. Very cool. Rachel, what about you? Thumbs up or thumbs down for spaghetti? Oh, Rachel wants a thumbs up for spaghetti. All right. Natalia and Sasha, what about you guys? Thumbs up or thumbs down? Oh, definite thumbs down. All right, all right. Hey, Rachel, come on back in here because I think it's almost time for some of your wonders.
Hello.
Hey, so I showed Oatmeal in Space, and we got a couple thumbs up for that. Rice Krispies in Space, couple thumbs up, but spaghetti was a definite no thank you, everyone.
I think I definitely had pasta for breakfast this morning. So that was a thumbs up for me.
Awesome. Hey, Haley, I think it might be a good time to see if kids have some wonders about living in space or eating food in space.
Awesome. Sounds good. So boys and girls, if you have a question about living in space or eating food in space, you can put up your hand, or remember that you can write them in the comments or in the chat box, and we'll try and get to them, as many of them as we can. So I'm going to start with Natalia, and then after that, Isla, and then I'll look to see who else has questions. So Natalia, you are the question.
I got two little ones. I watch Storytime in Space with my brother, and do you make the food in space?
I love that question, Natalia. I watch Storytime too. And do you know what's really cool? Is most of the food that goes up into space is already made for the astronauts. But sometimes, like Chris Hatfield showed us, you have to make a sandwich in space when you get up there. So you'd have your tortilla in one bag, you'd have your honey, you'd have maybe your nut butter in another one, and then you get to put it together. But something as simple as even vegetables, this one I didn't show you, but this is tomatoes and artichokes, and it's already in a package together, ready for the astronaut just to warm up.
Isla, what's your question, kiddo?
Well, I just wanted to say that my boss, which is my mom and dad, he a long time ago, he wanted to be an astronaut, but he didn't get elected to be an astronaut. But he almost became an astronaut.
Oh, that's really cool.
That's really cool, Isla. Yeah, lots of people want to be astronauts. You got to work really hard. And I guess your reward is that you get to eat Rice Krispies in space.
All right. Craig family, Weston, do you have a question, bud?
Yeah.
What's your question, kiddo?
How many aliens in space?
Yeah, that's one of the
How many aliens in space? Well, we haven't found any aliens yet, but we're looking. We have something called SETI, which is looking for aliens in space. So not quite yet, but I do have high hopes for finding aliens out there.
Sasha, what's your question, buddy?
That why does space people eat things in space?
Why do people eat things in space, Sasha?
Yeah, he said that.
Okay, well, because when they go up to space, it's a lot like going camping. Touch the top of your head if you've ever gone camping before. Isla, have you ever gone on a sleep? Yeah. So when you go camping or when you go to space, you have to take everything with you. You have to take your air, you have to take your food, and you have to take your water, because those are three things that there isn't any in space. And space is a long way away, Sasha. So if you were to get in a rocket ship and go all the way to space, you have to take your food with you that you're going to eat, because you're going to be there a while before you come home. And guess what? There's no ordering pizza if you go to space. So you have to take your food with you. I wish you could order pizza in space. That would be cool. All right. Who else has another wonder?
Sorry, Michaela, what's your question, kiddo?
Can astronauts float outside the space station?
Yes, they can. So we have the space station so they can keep all their air, all their food, all their water in one place. And then when they go outside the space station, they have to wear a spacesuit that gives them air to breathe. And they can still float outside in space, but they do have a little string that keeps them attached to the International Space Station so they don't float away.
That's a good question.
Mhm.
Awesome. I see a question in the chat from Amanda. It says, what does Earth look like from space?
Ooh, it looks a little bit like the photo behind me, actually. So it looks like a big round ball floating in space. It's very, very blue. A lot of astronauts who go up to the International Space Station always say that they are in shock and in awe when they see our Earth because it's unlike anything you can see on Earth because you're seeing the whole Earth. There's no borders that you can see. It's just nice blues and greens.
All right, Adrian, what's your question, kiddo?
Spacey has a rover too and it eats garbage in space.
Eats garbage in space. There's a rover that eats garbage in space.
Yeah, from Stinking Dirty. He just eats garbage.
That's really cool.
That reminds me of the robot Wall-E, if you've seen that movie.
Yeah. I have a robot that drives around my apartment and he picks up dirt from the floor. That's pretty cool too. He's a robot vacuum.
I think I need a robot vacuum. All right, Natalia, you have another question. What's your question?
My family speaks Russian except my dad.
Hey, Natalia, that's really cool. That means if I were to give you this package of Rice Krispies, then you would be able to translate and know how to cook it for breakfast.
Okay, Maddie and Gwen. Maddie and Gwenny, what's your question?
One of her teachers, Miss Olga, has her family in Russia. That's
very cool. Now, Maddie and Gwen, are you having a snack now?
Yeah.
Now, I think astronauts would have a similar snack. Do you know that, let's see, is someone having grapes and is someone having maybe a chip or something?
Chips.
Yeah. And grapes. So astronauts would take their food just like this and they would open it up to have their snack in space. In fact, this is astronaut, if you can see this, this is astronaut strawberries that go to space so they could have their snack of maybe some strawberries.
Do you have a question, Miss Charlotte?
Yeah. Are those strawberries moldy?
That's a good observation, Charlotte. They're not, but you know, I still really wouldn't want to eat them. They're brown because they've had all the water taken out, so they're almost like freeze-dried strawberries. So they've had all the water taken out. So they don't look very good and they're kind of old. So this is special astronaut food that went up to space and then they didn't eat it, so it came back down and then we got to show it at our museum. So yeah, I wouldn't sign up to eat these strawberries, that's for sure. Good observation, Charlotte.
Now, there is another question in the chat box that says, for either of you, I suppose, how do you go to the bathroom in space?
Oh, that's a question we get lots, right, Rachel?
It is, yes.
So what I'll share is that when astronauts get ready to go to space, they have to go through potty training, just like if you were a little kid. So astronauts have to learn how to float into the toilet. And then the toilet is not like the toilets here on Earth. In fact, the toilet is actually on the roof. So they float up to it, and then they actually have to wear a seat belt so that they stay strapped to the toilet, and then they turn on a vacuum, and that sucks away all the stuff when they go to the bathroom. So they have to do some toilet training before they get to go to space. That's a good question.
I'll also add that when we first went to the moon on what's called the Apollo missions, they actually sometimes wore diapers just in case they had to go.
Really big diapers.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw, Sasha, you have your hand up, and then I think that is the end of we're running out of time. I keep trying to unmute you, but the camera or the pictures are jumping around. So let me find you, Sasha. There you are. All right, Sasha, what is your question, kiddo?
Where do they put garbage in? Like where?
Sure, that's a really good question, Sasha. So when they take the food like this and they finish eating everything in the package, then they fold it up really, really small, fold it, and they pack it all together till it's really, really, really small. And some of it comes back to the earth to be recycled. But once they have a lot of garbage, what they can do is open up a special door on the International Space Station, and they push the garbage out in a package, and then it comes flying back down to the earth, and it burns up in the atmosphere. So sometimes when you're out looking and you might see a shooting star, raise your hand if anyone has seen the stars or a shooting star. Yeah. So sometimes you might actually be seeing, instead of a shooting star, you might see some garbage from the International Space Station coming back down to Earth and burning up. So that's what they do. But they try to recycle as much as they can because it's important to take care of everything. Good question, Sasha.
All right, so that we are coming to the end, unless anyone has a burning question that they haven't been able to ask yet. No? Okay. Who do I have unmuted? Thinking I have you unmuted. All right, well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. So Sienna and Anaya, you guys joined us at the end. So our time for the Space Center moving forward is going to be 10:30 on Thursday mornings. I'm so excited that we get to learn so much with them every week. So tell your friends, the more the merrier. They can join us. There we go. Boys and girls, let's give a thank you like this. Say thank you to Rachel and to Trish at the H.R. MacMillan Space Center. I'm going to play a song and you guys can head out when you are ready to go. All right. Goodbye, boys and girls.